Yeah, man. So like, okay, so on the topic of business, right? Like, so like LLCs, what's your thought about that?
So I think we put way too much emphasis and empowerment in just the actual LLC. But none on the actions that come afterwards.
Whoa! So like, hey, get your LLC, but then like we never follow up with those people. Like some of these people are our friends and family members, and we don't like say like, hey, yo, 6 months later, like, hey, like, how's your business going?
Well, what's there to follow up with? Because they're not doing anything with it. They get their LLC because somebody on Instagram said, get an LLC, you get $50,000 in business funding. So they get this LLC, they talk about this business.
Yeah.
But we don't care what comes after that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I see a lot on the internet like, hey, get your LLC. Don't you know that like, yo, like you can write off that Mercedes G-Wagon?
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Somebody that's like starting a hair braiding company out of like their apartment. Nothing against it, right? Yeah. Or even like, hey, they're doing tattoos out of like their dad's basement, right?
Yeah.
Can they go get a Mercedes G-Wagon?
So that's a two-part answer. Yes, they can because they can write it off for their business. No, they can't because they can't financially back it.
Exactly. So can you say that one more time?
So yes, they can because they can write it off. It is 6,000 pounds and above, whatever.
Yeah.
But no, they can't because they can't financially back it.
What do you mean by financially back it for those that don't understand, man?
So in order to write it off, one has to first pay for it. So like when I go to dinner, right?
Yeah.
And I expense a meal.
Yeah, like let's say
my card still has to go through if the meal is $100, right? Me and someone else go to dinner and it's $100.
Yeah. You had to have at least 200.
I still have to have $100 on my card.
Yeah, 105 or 120.
No, we're just talking about covering the meal.
The meal, yeah.
So you still have to have the money to pay for it
up front.
And then you can expense it, write it off, whatever you do, whatever your flavor is. But like for me, because like in my job, I do fill out a weekly expense report.
Okay.
And I do, depending on.
So there's written documentation. There's written year expenses.
Correct. So for me, like like right now, this is a trip that I'm on. It just so happens to be that you live here, and I can come and meet up with you.
Yeah.
But I expense the hotel. Yeah. I expense, by the way, because it's NCAA.
Yeah.
My room tonight is like $400 something. So there has to be $400 something to cover the room, right? Yeah. Paying for the rental car, it's like a few $100 for the
night.
For the rental car?
No, wait. It's $400 a night.
It's $400 a night at that courtyard.
Because of the College World Series.
Of the College World Series. So again, I'm gonna expense that. That's gonna go on my expense report. Yeah. But there still has to be it's like $463 or something. Yeah. There still has to be $463 on my credit card for me to be able to expense it.
It has to be there.
It has to be there up front. Just like this rental car that I'm driving right now. Yeah. It's a couple $100 for that.
It's a pretty clean one. There
has to be that money on my credit card to cover the rental car.
So why do you think that people have this false fantasy? No, not false. This fantasy that I can get a G-Wagon, I do tattoos out of my dad's basement, I braid hair out of my apartment.
Because they aren't familiar with the steps, so if you think of my work expense, some months are more than others, right? Yeah. But last month was kind of a big month. I had 9,000 in expenses. Okay. I had about 9,000 expenses. I still needed to have that available on my credit card. Yeah. And keep in mind, my expenses are reimbursed 2 to 3 weeks. So not only do I have to have the expense to cover this week that I'm here, but I need to have enough to get me through the reimbursement and to continue the spend pattern.
This is good math. This is good math,
so
my
think
guy.
About it. If my expense report on average is $1,500 a week. Roughly.
A week, yep. Okay.
On average, $1,500 a week, because typically I'm on the road 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. And if I'm flying, sometimes I'll sit there and in a Friday, that's typically when I do my expense report. Yeah. I'll look at the next month and it's like, okay, well, I need to be here, here, and here.
So $6,000 a month in expenses.
Easily. Yeah.
Easy.
And then it depends on what I'm doing though too, right? So like some weeks I'll sit there and it's like, okay, next month I need to be here, here, and here. I'll buy 3 plane tickets right then and there.
Yeah.
You know, so okay, that's done. But then when you get there, you still need to have hotel and this and that. So like when I turn it in though, like was last Friday? No, last Friday was not payday. I think next Friday is payday.
Yeah.
So that's when my reimbursement will come. So the expense report that I filled out for this week with the expensive ass hotel on, I won't get that for 3 weeks, because when I turn it in on Friday,
it's accounting for
it doesn't get processed fast enough to be here next week.
Yeah.
So it's going to go with the next 2 and be paid on the next pay period.
Gotcha.
So not only do you have to have the money to expense that, but once that money's gone, right?
Yeah.
Because when I paid for my hotel last night, that money's gone. When I pay for tonight's hotel, that money's gone. And I go back, tomorrow. I won't see that money for 3 more weeks. So there still has to be enough money on my card to get me through to the reimbursement, but still have the ability to spend normally.
And so what you're trying to say is that like a lot of these guys that have LLCs like are not accounting for like, hey, bro, LLC's the first part.
It's the first step. It's just the first step. You can't really do anything on day one, because so when you get your LLC, you still need a Duns and Bradford number.
Yes. Yeah.
So without that, you're not getting a credit card. Not a business credit card.
Nah.
And typically they want to see about 2 years.
Yeah. Just to have you establish your trade line, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's why like a lot of times we'll say like, okay, like go get a Uline account or something, or a Granger account.
Yeah.
Establish that, net 15, net 30 payment history.
Talk to him, big dog.
But like most people don't think about that, and it's like, oh, I've had this LLC for 3 years. Didn't have enough money last month to renew the $155 whatever.
People don't know about these things, big dog.
And then all of a sudden it's like, now you start making a little bit of money, and you think you're going to be able to write off 100% of your expenses, and it's like that's not how it works.
Not even close.
No, there's things that you can write off, yes, but not everything in your business. Because again, a write-off is business purposes, right?
Yeah.
So when you take yourself to Miami for the weekend,
yeah,
how can you explain that was business related? You can't. At least people don't think that far ahead.
So you also feel that there is a lot of I don't know, propaganda out there that's like, yeah, once you have an LLC, you can write off everything and anything. But you're saying like, hey, like you're saying that the IRS does monitor these things, like, and say like, how are you gonna go to Miami, and what does that have to do with you braiding hair?
Braiding hair. What did you fucking go to a braiding convention? Like, please show me the braiding convention you went to. And again, it's not to knock anybody. It's just, my big thing is like, we need to educate ourselves. People need to ask more questions. Like when you hear something, like something as simple as just try and think of 3 questions whenever you hear something, right?
Okay.
So like, I'll give you one example. The one that drives me nuts is $100,000 a year isn't that hard to make. It's only $333 a day.
Yeah.
But like, I'm a numbers guy, right? Like I've always been a numbers guy. So the first thing I thought of, I knew right off the top of my head that was wrong. But then I started thinking of the math.
Yeah.
So $333 a day.
Yeah.
Well, if you take 365 times 333, it's just over 100,000. Who's gonna work 7 days a week?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you figure 5 working days, that's 2,080 working days. Hours or whatever. 5 working days, 2,080 hours. You need to take $100,000 and divide it by that. And then when you start getting down to the math, it's like, okay, if you got 5 working days, really it's about 453 a day that you need to make on 5 working days. So that's no longer 333. But simple math, if you just know simple math, 3 times 3, right? Like, it's...
You know what's crazy? I tell people all the time when, like,